Welcome back everyone to the weekly mailbox, your chance to ask me questions about anything you would like. Formula 1, Formula E, motorsports, anything in between. And if you want to submit your questions for next week, throw them down in the comment section down below. Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. You all know the drill by now, and I will pick 5 of my favourites for next week. And hang on until the end. Of course, if you are new, you won't know. Question 5 is our audience participation question, and it's where I give my answer, but you give your answers as well and throw them in the comment section. We're changing that up slightly, something I think is a little bit of fun going forward. So if you want to hear a special announcement on that, wait until the end. But we'll start, as always, with question number 1, which this week comes from Victor Monk Knudsen from the YouTubes. Is the Mercedes dominance killing Formula 1? Like Lewis said, Mercedes are a lot on the top step. He's not wrong there. 2010 to 2012, the championships were so close and exciting. All respect to Mercedes for their hard work, but is this dominance killing the competition? Lots of questions about this one this week actually, which isn't a big surprise. Of course, last weekend, the Belgian Grand Prix, so many of us were so looking forward to it. I've made it abundantly clear. It's my favourite circuit on the calendar. Always an absolute banger. This year's not so much. I gave it a 7 out of 10 in my race review, but on reflection, I think I would give it more of a 6 or 7, but I've removed it and moved it to a 6 in my little spreadsheet I've got of the season. And there were things going for it. There was, of course, a great fight in the midfield yet again in 2020. I mean, the story around Ferrari for the entire weekend was, I'd say, entertainment in itself. But Mercedes at the front, another clear 1-2. What I would say, just before we get into the real meat of this question, that was only the second Mercedes 1-2 of the season, but it's been a Mercedes 1-2 in, I think, all but one of the qualifying sessions this year. It may be all but 2, but definitely Mercedes have been on pole position comfortably every race this year, and they have won every race this year comfortably, except that 70th anniversary Grand Prix that Max Verstappen took victory. Is their dominance killing Formula 1? From my perspective, no. I understand, I'm in a unique perspective where, as a content creator, I'm looking up and down the grid. I'm trying to keep track of all the stories, no matter how big, how small. I'm trying to keep as much focus on Nicholas Latifi and Williams as much as I am those guys like Renault at the front and the midfield and Mercedes at the top. Ferrari is just everywhere, so you always know about them. But I'm always trying my best to look at every single detail. I understand there's fans out there that only look at the results and maybe just watch the highlights, and if Mercedes are winning every weekend, then maybe there's not so much for them to keep an eye on. I think about myself and how I occasionally watch MotoGP. I've never watched a live race, but I always catch the highlights, and from those highlights I know that Marc Marquez is just incredible and is the best rider on the grid. I think they still call it the grid. Rossi as well back in the day. So I understand there's got to be versions of Formula 1 fans that are like that. And there are versions of Formula 1 fans that only keep an eye on the front. And for them, that only keep their eye on who's winning and who's on the podium, I can understand where maybe this year that they're not enjoying Formula 1 as much. But it's that point where I would say, first of all, keep an eye on that midfield more. We are being treated to an incredible fight in that midfield this year. There's questions on that a little bit later on, but we show up to every weekend not knowing who's going to be where in that midfield. And we have had it on occasion this year where we've shown up to races where Mercedes have been at the front and then it's been the midfield, Red Bull included, where we've seen midfield teams on the podium. Ferrari have been there twice. They're definitely a midfield team this year. McLaren have been up there with Lando Norris. Renault have been 4th. Racing Point have been 4th. Every team in that midfield pretty much is getting a go at the fight for being on the edge of a podium. And I've really loved that this year. And if you take away the 2 Mercedes and Verstappen from the Constructors and Drivers' Championship, that fight for the World Championship is incredible. But there is a fight at the front. We do have Mercedes, we do have Red Bull. I've been very open about my opinion on this since day one of this channel, and I made it once again abundantly clear. This weekend, I was with Sean, the F1 Word, doing a race reaction, and I think the biggest thing from this question, is the Mercedes dominance killing F1, is Is it Mercedes' fault? No, it's not. Mercedes are incredible. You've said it in your question. Nothing against their hard work. But what about the other teams? Ferrari are the perfect example of, is it Mercedes' dominance killing F1? Or is it other teams' failures killing F1? In 2010, like you said, 2010 to 2012, we had, 2010, there were 4 drivers that could win the World Championship in that final race from 3 different teams. 2012, we had 7 different drivers winning in the first 7 races. We had Kimi Raikkonen in Lotus winning a little bit later on in that year, but we had Williams on the top step, Red Bull, Ferrari, and at the moment, we just have Mercedes. And I think that is one of the big things we're missing. How close have Red Bull been now? Ever since 2014, they've, for the most part, since the hybrid era, built a solid car. Always been on the podium over the course of the season. In all but one season, I think, since the hybrid era, they've won a Grand Prix. This year they've won a race, but they're the closest challengers to the Mercedes, but still miles off. Ferrari, who last year got the most pole positions, bottled several victories, but were clearly Mercedes' biggest challenger, and have been since 2017, nowhere. The step back they have taken is incredible, so much so that last year's Mercedes car, aka the Racing Point, is better than this year's Ferrari. So I would never have a go at Mercedes. They are incredible. And even if Lewis Hamilton wasn't in that car, Bottas would be champion. Whoever was in that other Mercedes would be champion. Because even if Bottas has the worst weekend, he's still going to be on that podium. Even if Lewis Hamilton is having an off weekend, he's still going to be on that podium. Nothing against the drivers, nothing against the team. They're incredible. Other teams need to step up their game. I do think it's hurting Formula 1 a little bit, the team being so good, but honestly, it's up to the other teams just to get that a little bit better. And I will leave that rant there because I can sense myself going off into a spiral. Question at number 2 comes from Abhinav Dilip. Do Ferrari struggles make it though Vettel could leave the team possibly after the Tuscan Grand Prix as rumoured? You may have already noticed in this video, Ferrari, I think they should be doing better at the moment, and that's an understatement. So Sebastian Vettel, it's not been great this year. Another understatement for you. Last couple of weekends, arguments with the team on the team radio, but even Charles Leclerc was having to do that at Spa. It's not a happy camp at Ferrari. Things are not gelling, things are not working, and the incredible relationship between Vettel and Ferrari is crumbling and decaying so quickly, far more than any of us would have expected after the announcement that he was going to leave the team at the end of the season. Will he leave after the Tuscan Grand Prix? I think it's unlikely. There's a few reasons why I think it's unlikely, but first of all, that's going to be a disappointing weekend all round for Ferrari. They've got Monza next time out, then it's the Tuscan Grand Prix at Mugello. That's Ferrari's 1000th Grand Prix. It's supposed to be a celebration. I highly doubt it's going to be a celebration with the pace of that car at the moment. So to then smack it even worse with Vettel leaving, that's not going to sit right. Ferrari, if they bring in Sainz, is that going to make any kind of difference in the short term? No. Is Vettel going to want to leave at the moment? No. I know it's not going well. I know he's in a position where the team aren't helping him out. He's having to drive on his own. He's in an uncompetitive car. And you could argue it's hurting his reputation. But if he leaves now, first of all, he's got no chance of redeeming that reputation. We still haven't seen a contract signed with Aston Martin. And the more and more time goes on, the more and more less likely it seems that Vettel is going to get a deal done with Aston Martin. So he's got to try and rebuild that reputation a little bit in the event he doesn't get a drive for next season. And Sebastian Vettel, the man who just bought Nigel Mansell's World Championship winning Williams, he loves his history. He is so drenched in Formula 1 history. And people rightly last week for the weekly mailbox said, Dan, I don't think Vettel's going to want to go to Formula E. It's electric. This guy bleeds Formula 1. And they're right. He does. He loves it. And though it's not going well at the moment, and though he might not have a drive at the end of this season, I don't think he would ever leave. Also to add to that, 2020, the calendar is a very, very special calendar. We're going back to Imola. We're going back to the Nürburgring. We're going to Portugal. We're all over the place this year. Turkey as well was announced last week, wasn't it? Vettel doesn't want to miss that. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of the drivers this year to race at Imola, one of the most historic Formula 1 venues of all time. And for Vettel, I know it's not going well at the moment, but to race at Imola, fantastic. To race at Imola in a Ferrari, though it's not a particularly quick Ferrari, he's not going to miss that opportunity. So I don't see him leaving before the end of the season. Question number 3 comes from Nathan, one I can actually pronounce for once. With Renault's straight line speed in Monza, do you think they could possibly snatch a podium? What a question. So many of you agreed. So many of you liking this one. So many of you asking something very, very similar. Could they beat Red Bull? Are they going to be the team to beat potentially Mercedes? I wouldn't push it that far. But they look good. They look really, really good. And a couple of years ago when Red Bull, ruined their ties with Renault, they said, we don't want the rubbish Renault engines, we want Honda instead. That was a real slap in the face for Renault, considering how poor Honda had been with McLaren previously. So for Renault to recover, like they did last year at Monza and Canada, 2 high power circuits, 4th places. And you're looking and you're thinking, well, maybe Renault could slowly recover, but overall last year wasn't great. This year has started rocky. It's not been fantastic, but they've been solid in that midfield. They've been able to pick up points when other cars have failed, but it's still missing that podium. Last time out in Spa, incredible. The team's best ever points haul, I think. Not best ever result. They have had wins in the past, of course, with Alonso, but thanks to the new point system and also fastest lap from Daniel Ricciardo, it's their greatest ever points haul. 4th and 5th, their best result since their return. Monza's an even more power-sensitive circuit than Spa. And the area where the team struggled most last weekend was Sector 2. And the nature of Sector 2, it's very tight and twisty, not great for straight-line speed. That's not there at Monza. So, in theory, though other teams won't go for a downforce-based setup and they will go for straight-line speed in mind, more so in Monza, in theory, Renault are still going to have an incredible car. Can they snatch a podium? I think it could be a very similar story to last time. I think 4th and 5th is going to be where they're going to line up on the grid, and I think they'll be closer to the top 3. Their tyre management last time out was impeccable compared to the top 3. I think we could see it. It's going to need a bit of luck. It's going to potentially need one of the top 3 to have some kind of tyre issues or retirement. But I can see it. They've got a strong car there and they need big points weekends like last weekend. Weekends like Monza. Because when we go to Mugello, when we go to Imola, circuits that are more tight and twisty and not straight line speed based, Renault are going to struggle. And we've already seen that narrative so far this year. They need a big result this weekend. I think they could get it. Question number 4 comes from Lorenzo Letta. Does Yuri Vips still have a chance to race in Formula 1 in the years to come? A name we've spoken about for years. Red Bull's next big hope. Surely he's going to be the next driver in AlphaTauri. And then Yuki Tsunoda shows up. Then Jehan Daruvala shows up. There was Tictum as well for a time. But Tsunoda is the one that we spoke about last weekend. There were questions about this weekend. But what about Yuri Vips, the driver who Red Bull decided they're not going to put him in Formula 2. They'll put him in Japanese Super Formula. But unlucky for Yuri, because of everything going on this year, he wasn't able to go to Japan. He did get a chance this weekend, though. Obviously, Sean Gelael, hope he gets better soon. Looks like he's on the road to recovery, having an incident which he injured his back during the Spanish Grand Prix sprint race for Formula 2. Yuri Vips has got an incredible chance. 3 races in Formula 2 to prove his ability. Dams, a fantastic team alongside Dan Ticktum. What an opportunity. And last weekend, no points in his first 2 races. 0 points. However, he started from the back after an issue in qualifying, not his fault. Started 22nd, finished 11th in a highly competitive Formula 2 grid in a car just as equal to all the others on the grid. It is a spec series. That's magic on its own. The next day, started 11th on the grid, but the car stalled started from pit lane, arguably worse than starting 22nd. Less laps to do it in because it's the sprint race. Once again, finishes 11th. No points so far for YURI Vips. No practice before this weekend. I think his performances this weekend were incredible. I cannot wait to see what he does this weekend at Monza. He's going to need some big results to force Red Bull to try and give him a seat in Formula 2 next year or even for the remainder of this year. I think he's got great pace. I think he's got plenty of natural talent, and to be honest with you, if Kvyat moves on for Tsunoda and if Gasly finds a seat elsewhere, I actually think YURI Vips is a very, very solid driver and would do not too bad in Formula 1. So yes, I can see him still making it to Formula 1, but he needs to get in Formula 2 this year for the rest of the season, or at least get a full-time drive next season. And finally, question number 5, our audience participation question, where you get to give me your answers in the comment section down below, comes from M. Sally, who asks, who do you think will be at the top of the midfield at the end of the season? It seems like it's anyone's game at the moment. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's so hard to call. I would love, actually, YouTube have got rid of them now, but I would have loved to have put a poll in the top right-hand corner and try and get a rough idea of who we think. So we're going to have to do it through the comments, but it's so hard to call anyway. The midfield this year, every single weekend we've shown up, pretty much a different team has been at the front and equally at the back of the midfield. Think back to Austria, the first race of the season, when Ferrari were pretty much that third best team with McLaren. Last time out, Ferrari in that back three pack with the Alphas, the Hasses and the Williams, and Renault, who struggled in that first weekend, are at the front in the midfield. And I think it is going to continue to just be this mishmash of pace and performance throughout the rest of the season. And at the moment, on points, all of the teams in that midfield scrap are so close. My gut feeling at the moment, McLaren seem to be the most consistent on a variety of different circuits. They did well at Silverstone. They did brilliant at Austria. Struggled a bit more in Hungary. Didn't do too bad last time out in Spa. However, I think they've got two drivers, even Carlos Sainz, who's leaving, that are committed to the project this year, that are consistent, that aren't getting involved in silly incidents. I think Renault also have a similar storyline there. However, I think they're a little bit more compromised on circuits like Mugello, like Imola, whereas I think McLaren could actually do quite well at those venues. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and your quick announcement regarding the audience participation section. For every 5 episodes, we're going to start our audience tier lists. So on episode 54 next week, but you can do it this week as well, and then episode 59, episode 64, I'm going to ask for your tier list ideas. And then the next episode, so every 5 episodes, 55, 60, 65, we will then do our tier list at the end of the video. And then for the following week, the episode afterwards, I'll let you guys have a go and we'll have a look at what the community thinks of the tier list. So our audience participation tier lists will start in a couple of weeks' time. But if you want to throw your ideas of what we do our first one on in the comment section down below, we'll have a little brainstorm for the next 2 weeks. And that is it for this week's episode of the weekly mailbox. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, hit that like button. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. If you want to submit your questions, you know what to do. Comment section down below, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.